So equitable distribution, which is how assets are actually divided in New York, which means equitable, not equal, is very important because there are several factors that are looked at in order to divide the assets. So we have to remember, yes, usually if there are children and it's a longish marriage, it's going to be 50-50 for most of the assets. But the court will look at various factors. And when you're negotiating your settlement, you have to be aware of those factors too, because they will influence how your settlement is going to be actually, come to fruition. So it's the length of the marriage. Length of the marriage is very important. Longer marriage, you're going to probably get a higher percentage. More likely that it's going to be a 50-50 split of most of the assets, if not all of the assets. Business assets, as I've said before, are treated differently, but everything else basically 50-50. Age of the parties, their health, those are things that are going to be looked at. The value of the assets, and the value of the assets when you came into marriage. So what did you come into the marriage with? And what is there now to divide? That's something that's going to be important as well. What alimony or spousal support is being paid? That's going to be a factor in this. Whether the spouse who is actually receiving the equitable distribution, whether there's a need for someone to stay in the marital home, that's going to be a factor. Whether somebody has contributed, what are their contributions? Have they helped to raise children, stepchildren? Are there children with disabilities? All of those are going to be factors. And so the court looks at all of these plus other factors in determining equitable distribution. They'll also look at separate property. Is there someone who has come into the marriage or has inherited separate property? Meaning that is your property alone. You either came into the marriage with it and you kept it separate and apart and you did not commingle it, or you inherited it during the marriage and you kept it separate and apart and have traced it and can identify it. So these will all be factors in equitable distribution.